we're in a situation where our soils are getting worse, fertiliser prices are going up, and we need to look at options. And it's just trying to find the things that are going to work. And so, we're starting with small areas and trials like this, which are great because we get to do some things that are a bit different and, not all of them always work, but we're finding out what we can and can't do that is going to work for farmers in this area in Western Australia. In every site we do the soil test initially, then we've got an idea of what we're working with, and we've got the baseline data on our soils so that as the project goes we can see how it tracks. What we're really trying to do in this project is we're trying to bring the soils back to life, get as much biology involved as possible, because that is what is going to turn it into a healthy and functioning soil, and they're going to do the things that we normally have to do, which is structure the soil, they cycle the nutrients, fix nitrogen, do all those sort of things that save us from having to put more on and put more into it. The way we're going to do that is by trying to support strong vegetative communities, diverse communities of plants, because they're the ones that bring the energy in and the carbon and just drive the whole system. So we pretty much chucked the kitchen sink at the seed coating process. We used the Johnson Sioux compost extract, and we combined that with some mycorrhizal inoculant, and there was already rhizobia inoculants on the clover, and then we also put some soft rock phosphate on it, so it was kind of like a clay slurry. And then before we put that on the seed, we had a trace mineral mix that supposedly helped, with the plants when they're first getting going. On all of the farms, we've seeded 2 different mixes. One of them is like a cover crop, a multi-species cover crop mix, and that's got a lot of annual species that they don't really handle grazing that well. They don't come back well after grazing because they're annual species, and that mix we're going to let grow all the way through to seed set, and then we're actually going to use it as dry feed in the summer because it's full of all these nutritious seeds. And so it's primarily there to kind of smother out weeds and fix the soil, and then we will get good off-season feed out of it. And then because it sets seed, the following autumn it's very thick and we get really good early feed, which is also a feed gap in early autumn. So the spring and summer and early autumn is when this is designed to be grazed. Also, by letting the plant set seed, you enable or you allow the microbes that live on those plants to also set seed. So we're kind of really just trying to kickstart the system with this kind of cover crop. The other mix is more a multi-species grazing mix, so it's got species in it that you can put the livestock on and graze. We've just got to graze it and allow the plants to recover enough before we graze it again. So we're at Mark and Amanda Batt's property. We've got it in the ground, the rain's come and everything's up and germinated. And so we'll be moving on to the next stages now, which is looking at how we can sort of just support the crop to grow really well. The sites all have very different soils, and where we are now in sort of the Boddington area, the soils are they're very rich. They've got a lot of minerals in them. The limiting factor is just that it can sometimes bind things up, phosphorus in particular, because it's a high PBI soil. So then there's other ones in the project that have nothing in them at all. They're really poor, but they don't hold on to things, so you can get a good response by adding fertilisers to them. So yeah, a bit of horses for courses, if you know what I mean. So we're here at Susie Batt's property in Quindanning, and we're standing amongst the cover crop mix that we planted, all looking pretty good. We've got pretty thick germination, which is encouraging. The other property that we were at before was a little bit thinner, maybe because the soil was a bit more non-wetting and maybe it got a bit less rain. But anyway, yeah, this is really encouraging to see such thick germination. We're going to have a really dense stand here. A little bit less aluminium than the other place, which is good. It's a bit easier to work with this soil, I think. It's not going to tie things up quite as much, but it's still, heavy soil and it's got a lot in the bank. So if we can get the biological activity happening here, plants are going to grow really well. If we can just get it through to the point where the system's starting to really function, that'll be great. But it's looking good. The third property that we visited was Julia and Rupert Richardson's in Mardella. It was a bit of a shock. There was a lot of red-legged earth mite activity, and they were eating a lot of the species that had germinated. Things weren't growing too well, and they should be at this stage because, you know, they grow from a seed that has a lot of stuff in it. So there's obviously some constraints in the soil that are causing problems with the growth. And also there wasn't great weed control. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of competition from weeds as well, because we want to get good vegetative stands growing, but if we can't get them growing in the first place, it's hard to sort of improve things. And I think that property is going to take some dedicated work in terms of, you know, preparation of the soil, inputs, like it needs liming, it's got pH problems, and it's got probably some aluminium problems and other things as well. So unfortunately, with some properties, you've got to do a bit more up front to get to the point where you can actually make it work and function, and then you can start to work on some of the finer details and tweak it a bit. Another option is, of course, just to go for the low input approach and just slowly work it and improve it with animals. And in a way, at least that's not costly, but it takes a lot longer, and you really have to do it properly as well. You still have to grade it properly. We're here at Luigi Frangiosa's property in West Pinjarra. So it's a pretty sort of gutless grey sand. We've got a lot of work to do to improve the soil and have it sustain good pasture growth.
It is the worst part of the farm, I must admit. So if we can make this work well, then that will help me adopt other practices with the rest of the farming and the paddocks that are here. So just, you know, looking at the soil condition, seeing, you know, with some good advice, hopefully I can sustain a future of farming here.
We've just had a look at the paddocks and the germination looks good, which is great.
I'm impressed to see the seed growth. It's the first time I've actually put some seed in the property, so it's great to see germination. Obviously, it was great with the rain. I'm happy. I'm happy to see progress of something, and yeah, hopefully it continues to grow. And if I look after it, I can get a crop that will feed the cows well.
Well, obviously, this is our worst soil in terms of like what it's got in it. It's just gutless sort of grey sand. And so the first thing I've noticed is we spread some ginger and loam on this paddock here, and we didn't spread it on that one. And looking at it already, we can see quite a difference in the growth. So the loam was kind of just something that we used to address some of the limiting factors, which in this soil was like no holding capacity, low nutrients. And yeah, it's made more of a difference than I thought it would at this stage. So that's really encouraging. Because on a soil like this where we've got no nutrients, it's still growing well, it's germinated well, so it hasn't got that same sort of like these sort of really limiting factors going on yet. And it is tough with a site like this because even if we get it growing really well this year, like if you don't keep on doing good things, because the soil hasn't got holding capacity and it hasn't got a bank of nutrients, it's just going to go back to square one again. We have to just make sure that we kind of keep it heading in the right direction. Things like clay or biochar put into the mix just to give it something, you know, some carbon and stuff to hold, some holding capacity, basically.
Well, look, I think the soil that I have here is not uncommon for the area and across this southwest scarp. So, you know, with a little bit of understanding and knowledge, I think it's a well worth practice instead of, you know, looking at spending a whole heap of money on different fertilisers to try and get something. A little bit of education, a little bit of science behind it to try and capitalise on reduced costs instead of sort of just dumping it with a whole heap of everything. So look, for any farmers that are sitting on the fence and have the same sort of soil and don't think they can make anything of it, by showing what we can do here, might encourage others to adopt the same sort of practices.